If you were behind an MG-42, you weren't just defending the coast. You were marking yourself as the most dangerous man on the beach. And by the end of June 6th, that decision would determine whether you survived, surrendered, or never left the bunker alive. To understand why MG-42 gunners were treated differently, we have to start with the weapon itself. When the MG-42 entered service in 1942, it instantly became the backbone of German defenses. It followed German units across North Africa and the Eastern Front, earning a reputation so terrifying that Allied soldiers could identify it by sound alone. Not by sight, by sound. A continuous roar so fast it no longer sounded like individual shots. Veterans compared it to a mechanical saw ripping through the air. Once you heard it, you didn't forget it. But this story isn't about rate of fire or engineering. It's about the men pulling the trigger, and what that role meant when the largest amphibious invasion in history finally began. German planners believed there was only one way to stop an Allied landing: destroy it before soldiers could even leave the beach. If the first waves were broken in the surf, the invasion would collapse before it ever gained momentum. So they built a chain of fortified strong points along the coast, known as Widerstands Nester. These weren't random bunkers. They were positioned with precision. Each one supported the others, creating overlapping fields of fire designed to trap attackers in the open. If one gun missed you, another was already lined up. On Omaha Beach alone, there were roughly 15 of these strong points. Many were angled to fire sideways across the sand, meaning that escaping one gun often meant running straight into another. At the center of nearly every one of these positions was an MG-42. Each gun was operated by a three-man team: a gunner, an assistant feeding ammunition and swapping overheated barrels, and a third man carrying additional ammo. Some of these crews were combat veterans. Others were young replacements who had never fired a shot in battle. It didn't matter. Their orders were identical: hold the position, no matter what. When dawn broke on June 6th, that order translated into something brutally simple: keep firing until the beach is clear, or die at the weapon. What many of these gunners didn't realize was that their firepower also made them the Allies' highest priority. Months before the invasion, Allied intelligence had mapped the coastline bunker by bunker. Every strong point was numbered, every firing angle studied. The plan assumed that air and naval bombardment would destroy most of these positions before troops ever landed. On paper, it looked flawless. In reality, it wasn't. Before sunrise, battleships and cruisers unleashed thousands of shells onto the cliffs and beaches. The bombardment shook the ground and filled the air with smoke and debris. But many bunkers were reinforced with thick concrete. Even direct hits often failed to destroy them. Inside, German soldiers waited as the bombardment raged, until it stopped. And when the smoke began to clear, they looked out and saw hundreds of landing craft moving toward shore. British and Canadian forces landed with specialized armored vehicles designed to clear defenses and support infantry. At Omaha Beach, American troops weren't so lucky. Their amphibious tanks were launched too far offshore. Rough seas did the rest. Out of 32 tanks sent in, most sank before reaching land. With armor gone, the MG-42s took control of the beach. What followed was chaos. Machine gun crews used well-practiced techniques to maximize casualties. Some fired low, aiming for legs instead of torsos. Wounded men would fall. Others rushed to help, creating more targets. In other cases, one gun fired tracer rounds high, giving the illusion of harmless fire, while a second hidden gun fired at chest level. Simple, effective, devastating. The first wave stalled. Landing schedules collapsed. Officers were killed or pinned down. Units became scattered. And at that point, the original battle plan no longer mattered. Small groups of Allied soldiers began advancing on their own. They used anything they could for cover: shell craters, obstacles, wrecked vehicles, and even bodies on the sand. They learned to move during the MG-42's brief pauses. The few seconds it took to reload or change a barrel became the only windows of survival. In one sector, a sergeant gathered a small assault team armed with a bazooka and charged a strong point that had been sweeping the beach with fire. They destroyed a supporting anti-tank gun, then pushed forward and eliminated the machine gun crews one by one. That single breakthrough reduced pressure across an entire stretch of beach. Elsewhere, Rangers, engineers, and infantry fought their way toward the cliffs. Smoke screens hid advances. Engineers cleared obstacles under fire. Troops climbed bluffs and attacked bunkers from above. But reaching a bunker was only the beginning. Once assault teams closed in, grenades and satchel charges were thrown into firing ports. Flamethrowers were used to force defenders out or destroy positions entirely. In the brutal close combat that followed, many defenders were killed on the spot. Some MG-42 crews, wounded or out of ammunition, attempted to surrender. But after hours of relentless fighting and mounting casualties, not every surrender was accepted. By early afternoon, the balance had shifted. Small Allied units held the high ground. Strong points were destroyed or bypassed. Later reports made one thing clear: Omaha Beach was not secured by bombardment. It was secured by infantry and engineers fighting forward under fire. When the MG-42s finally fell silent, everything changed. Beach exits opened, reinforcements poured in. German defenses collapsed piece by piece. And for the men who once sat behind those machine guns, the war took a very different and often brutal turn. Not because they failed, but because they held the most dangerous job on the most dangerous beach of the war.